All right, hey, it's Paul from PaulSailor.com. Today we're going to talk about a pretty serious topic, and that's President Duterte of the Philippines. A lot of stuff is happening. I don't know if you've been keeping up on it, but basically he went to China yesterday and made a huge shift away from the U.S. And in foreign policy, and also invited a lot of investment from China into the Philippines. And now I hear he's going to be going to Japan next week and also asking for investment, right? So he's ruffled a lot of feathers, and I think he's a really misunderstood character. And I want to tell you a little bit about President Duterte and let you basically make your own conclusions. A lot of people, he admitted that he was sexually molested when he was a kid. And when he was about, I guess, freshman in high school, so 16 years old. He was in Mindanao, and he's from Mindanao. His mom is Moro, which is a ethnic, basically the Islamic groups that are down there are Moro. That's what used to be called the Moro Liberation Front. MLF was the big, causing a lot of trouble. They were bombing and they were kidnapping people and stuff like that, right? That his mom is from that group. His dad is Cebuanan, so he's from Cebu, but speaks that language. And a lot of people in the Philippines don't speak Tagalog, actually. So he's from this very unusual part of the Philippines. Very first president from down there, and he's also the first president not to have any support or very little support of the oligarchs. There's a few families that control the Philippines, but Duterte is not one. No, he's not. He's obviously he's had connections. He's talked to people and all that, but he has some connection to the Marcoses, but very, very little. And he basically is on his own, right? Why is he like this? And why did he act the way he acted? And I want to talk about some really, really bad press or reporting that came from the West, so that you can understand this very, very important guy in our time. So when he was a kid, he was molested. He admitted it, and I want to dig into this one because I think it's important to understanding this man. The guy who molested him was named Father Mark Falvey, and he's from Los Angeles. Now, Mark was an American, and he was a serial molester. I'll put the links down below, but he raped 9 kids in Los Angeles. I think it was 4 girls and 5 boys, or 5 girls and either way, it was 9 kids that the church had to pay between $1.4 and $1.6 million each to the kids' families to make restitution for raping them. And Duterte admits that he was fondled. Okay, but just think about this, and of course, it's very possible he was just fondled, but the guy who fondled him raped many, many kids, and he was caught. And I have his picture and everything I can put down below. This is a real person. Okay, so let's go back in time to 55 years ago when Rodrigo Duterte was 16 years old when this whole thing happened. Okay, the Philippines was a colony of the U.S. just before that. It just got independent, and so you had a very dependent relationship. Even today, you have quite a dependent relationship, the Philippines and the U.S. But back then, it was really strong, right? And they just had broken off. They very narrowly voted not to be a U.S. state, actually, very, very narrowly. I heard it was less than 1%, but they decided to be independent. So this was just after that period, right? 55 years ago, he was in a third world country, very much third world country, and he was a young boy, and he was molested by a priest, okay? And that priest was American. So when you hear a lot of his anti-American rhetoric, I think it's very important to look through the lens of a man's life. What did he go through? What did he experience? And why is he the way he is? And how does he think, right? So this was hard. I mean, he's 16 years old, right? He's 16 or 15 years old. Now imagine this, okay? In 1989, I went to the Philippines. And in 1990, I went to a convention in Cebu. And that convention was at I don't know if you call it a monastery or a seminary. It was like the Holy See something. I can look online and see if I can find it. But there was a 12-step convention at this seminary. And I got there a couple days early. And so I went to a meeting And one of the priests was at the meeting, and he said, "Hey, are you here for the convention?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here for the convention." So he says, "Why don't you come a couple days early, and you could stay up at the seminary where we're having the convention?" So I was like, "Okay." So I went up there, and I stayed in one of these seminaries in the Philippines 26, 27 years ago. So I have a kind of a feeling of what it was like. Although 55 years ago is longer, so it was probably much more so. But I want to give you a picture of what it was like. Okay, you had the city of Cebu. It was a very vibrant city, a lot of stuff going on. And then you had the monastery. Now that monastery that I went to was, you took a taxi way up in the mountains. Nobody else out there. Very, very secluded. So I was up in the mountains, and it was a weird feeling because in Asia, you usually are around people, right? There's always people everywhere, right? But in this seminary, there was like nobody. Only the priests. They were the only ones there. They owned the place. And I remember one night, I had a very weird feeling when I got there. Because I'm not Catholic and I'm not Christian, so I kind of like walked around, and I couldn't sleep one night, so I walked around one night, and I walked over to one of the priests, and he was watching TV in his room, and I kind of like knocked on it because I knew him, so I knocked on the window, and then he was very startled, and he opened the door, and he was watching like a TNA movie, like a teenage sex movie. You know, the ones where the girls their boobs pop out, you know, it's like really stupid, really inane kind of 80s kind of 70s thing, and I was like, whoa, I was like, okay, this guy's a priest and he's watching this childish movie that I stopped watching when I'm 13. Okay, cool, whatever. But I just had this feeling that there was a weird vibe going on at that monastery for sure. And I thought to myself, because I've had guys that wanted to, when I was a kid, my Boy Scout leader wanted to rape me, and luckily I quit the Boy Scouts. Right after I found that out. I was so young I could barely even I couldn't even fathom what he wanted, but I knew it wasn't good for me, and I quit the Boy Scouts. The next day, my dad called me a quitter, and it's not his fault. He didn't know. I couldn't explain myself. I was too young. But I knew that he wanted something from me, alone, in his dark hallway, and he was really excited. I knew that, but I couldn't really put it into words. It's not like today where it's so easy. Everything's on the internet, and this was like 1972 or something, right? 71. So I can imagine what it was like for Duterte back in his day, and especially in Asia, where there's a macho guy thing going on in Asia. And I can really understand Duterte. I'm not going to go there whether he was raped or not, but that guy raped people, and he was a rapist. Okay, so he was a scary guy. Now, and those monasteries and seminaries and schools in the Philippines back then were very secluded. Like, you couldn't just go there. It wasn't like in the middle of town like an office building. It was like a kingdom, man. When you went in there, you would go in the gate, and you're in there. You're in this thing. It wasn't a church, right? It's not a church. A church is different. They're downtown and everything. These kind of places, these schools and stuff, usually there's like a lot of kids. They're all together. They all sleep in the same room. So think back to Mr. Duterte's time there. There was a priest who was a serial rapist and caught in the U.S. and sentenced, and the church paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to the victims. Now, did the church pay any money to the Filipinos? I read the Philippine Star article about it, but I didn't see anything about the church giving any money. So if there's any one group that is responsible for who Duterte is, it's the Catholic Church. And I think, I was going to, a little ahead of myself, but at the end of the video I was going to say, I think that the Catholic Church should make a personal apology to Duterte for what happened to him when he was a kid. Because if he wasn't raped, okay, his friends were, okay, and he knew about it. Now think about it, you're 16 years old, maybe you're just fondled, maybe you're raped, okay, maybe, you feel terrible, you're grinding inside, it's your first sexual experience. He admitted this is a sexual awakening, was with this priest. So, these are heavy things, man. These are heavy things, and I want to go there, and the reason is because you have to understand this guy. Okay, he was raped by fondled by an American, and probably his friends were raped when he was 16 years old. I don't know about you, but when I was 16, man, anything that happened to me, I was like so sensitive to things, like especially sexual things. Man, anything sexual was like a big deal, right? And anything that got me angry, I get super angry, I get in fights and things. I had so much testosterone going on in my body, right? So it was a tough time for me. And I imagine he's the kind of guy. This is a strong guy, right? Duterte is a strong guy. Okay, he's part of a movement that we're going to talk about later. A very important movement which has to be respected. Otherwise, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be trouble. So let's go into it. So just his personal experience. So that was what happened to him as a kid. Now think about this. The church is just coming clean about this stuff happening to kids. And I think the reason why is there's no videos, there's no pictures. If you had a picture of a priest raping a boy in the ass, right, and doing the things that you do when you have sex with a young boy, if you had videos like this, a priest doing this, I think this whole thing would have blown up a lot faster. But it's just theoretical to all of us, right? We weren't there, right? So it's like, yeah, maybe he raped him, yeah. What does rape mean? I don't know, doesn't know, right? Who did what? I don't know. The reality is this is a very ugly situation. Very, very ugly. And it was an American who was a Christian, he was a priest, and he was part of the elite because this was a colony of the US until recently, right? So this guy had all the power, and Duterte had no power at all, right? He was a little kid being abused by an American in his country, and probably his friends too. Okay, so you got to know that, because when you read the Western press or even the Philippine press, nobody talks about it directly. They say, oh, he's a, I think Obama said he's prone to outbursts. He talks this way. I don't know how he would feel if we went down south in the slavery time and we found an angry slave and we talked to him and we said, hey, he's prone this way. It's like, what happened to this guy, right? What happened to his life that he is this way? Okay. Stuff happened to him, real things, right? We're going to talk about more things that happened to him. Okay, so that's his first impression of America. Okay, next thing is he married an American, Elizabeth Zimmerman, and she divorced him, or they divorced later. I think she's still alive. She's 68, I believe. So he has a lot of experience with Americans, actually. And you could see in his video, if you watch his video in China, he was an angry guy at Americans, no question about that, right? And that's his right? We all have our feelings, we have our own experiences, right? He has his experiences, right? So he grows up, his mom is Moro. Now Moro is the Islamic, it's basically the ethnic group that is now rebelling or trying to break away from the Philippines. Okay, so he's in the middle of the cauldron. Like I said before, he's the only one ever from outside of the power structure of the Philippines to be the president. So he's down there. His mom is telling him things that would happen. And this is another thing. Okay, here's another thing. In all the articles I've read, they talk about colonialism, right? They talk about, oh, he's angry about colonialism. Let's talk about colonialism, okay? Let's talk about specifics. Just like we talked about specifics when it comes to sex. Let's talk about specifics. Okay, there was a massacre in Mindanao, okay, where his mom's from, and near where he was, and it was called the Dajo, and you can look it up. It's Buddayo, okay, 2 words. Dajo was a massacre by the Americans. Okay, it was during the colonial period, because actually was it? Yeah, it was, because the Spanish-American War was 1899 to 1902. It was just over. 1906 was the Dajo massacre. Now, most Filipinos don't even know about the Dajo massacre, but it's getting pressed now. It's getting pressed now because of Duterte. So let's just go over real quick so you can understand what happened. What happened was, down there in the south, they're very independent. This is the Islamic part of the Philippines. Traditionally, and so they didn't want to. They didn't want to pay taxes to Americans. The Americans demanded taxes from them. Okay, does that remind you of anybody else who got angry about tax? Yeah. Well, the Americans demanded taxes from the people in the Philippines at that time when they were a colony, and so you're a colony. The colonizers are demanding taxes, and you're Islamic, which you're only allowed to pay taxes to Allah. Okay, you can't pay taxes to anybody in the middle. That's like God. You're paying to God, which is the Americans in that case. And so they can't do that. So they said, no, we can't pay the taxes here. So they left their village and they climbed a volcano, which was Dajo, and it was not an active volcano. And they went up there, about 600 people, and they made a village. They made their life up on this volcano. And they planted things. It's the Philippines has great land and things grow like crazy there. So it's they made good crops and everything. They're up there. Well, the Americans weren't happy about that, and they decided to go and basically root them out. Okay, they're going to root out these guys and they're going to make them pay taxes. So now the Americans are heavily armed. All this stuff is documented. There's pictures and everything I can put down below. Okay, the pictures are from the U.S. I believe the U.S. Army Archives. but they're from the U.S. military archives. So, and one of them shows a guy standing on a naked woman who's been killed. Her breast is visible, and he's got his gun, and they're all like happy, smiling, right? They've got 600 bodies, right? And the Americans are happy about that. So, this is his mom's people, okay? This is Duterte's mom's people. So, this massacre was basically never got any press. And why didn't it get any press? It didn't get any press. Well, a lot of bad things happened before, and they didn't get any press. But one of the big reasons I think here is because it was a colony. So when you're a colony, the colonizers can not talk about things they don't want to talk about. And this was a massacre that the U.S. was not proud of. In fact, the U.S. Congress called it a massacre, and heads rolled. I believe people were prosecuted over this. It was a thing in the Congress. They called it a massacre. The guy who led it, I can't remember his name, but I think he was fired or put in jail or something. You can read about it, Dajo massacre, and you're going to read more about it because now because of Duterte, this is becoming a big thing in the Philippines. They're going to teach this to all the kids, so you're going to hear more about this. So the situation down there was pretty bad. This is his mother. He heard this story. It's not being publicized. So you've been, let's say, for example, you've been molested, and your molester is a powerful, powerful guy, okay? Even now in the Catholic Church in the Philippines, the priests are very powerful. They get their way. Like if a priest has his clothes on with I don't forget what it's called, but he goes into any area, everybody just moves away. Like, sir, where are you going? Like, no one's going to ask him like where he's going. It's like the priests, they get their way in the Philippines. If you're from Philippines, you know what I'm talking about. Like, they're really revered by a lot of people, right? And it's deep in the culture of the Philippines, right? And I'm not saying anything like all Catholics or anything. I'm just saying this situation, right? So he was abused by a powerful man and probably his friends, okay? And he knew about it. And then his mother's people had been killed, 600 of them, by heavily armed Americans. They were almost completely unarmed. So it was 26 Americans died and 600 Moro people died. And the reason why 26 died is because they started to roll logs down the volcano, and those took out a few people before they got up to the top and started killing everybody. So it was a total massacre. The U.S. Congress called it a massacre, and it was totally covered up. And the only reason why I'm talking about it now is because somebody had pictures in the archive of this situation. So now Duterte knows all this stuff, right? So I think the important thing to think here is that this is the man Duterte, okay? So if you're Filipino and you don't have this same experience with the Americans, then I think you have to really think about what to do. This is a very tough situation. Very tough situation. The guy hates Americans. There's no question about it. And he has good reason to hate Americans. I mean, these are solid reasons. I mean, I have respect for Duterte. I think he's not out there blowing people up. He's not terrorizing people. He is a president of a country. He's the first rich family guy, not connected. I mean, the guy is amazing, And then when he says stuff, so you got to use this to interpret what he's talking about. So let's say, for example, when you read in the press that let's go over some things that happened recently. So he said he's going to kill the drug dealers because they're killing his country. Okay, he's a patriotic guy, and there is some argument about how serious how much of his drug war is his real war, but either way, let's just say for that, it's a very serious situation. I know Shabu is really serious in the Philippines. So he said, I will kill you if you kill my country. And meanwhile, if you read the press, right, I don't know what you read in the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, but everybody said he's killing all these guys. He said very clearly, and he said it again in China yesterday, is you kill my country, I kill you, right? And I don't know, man. You guys, it's so easy to sit back in New York. You went to school, law school, or you have an easy life, and you think, oh, he shouldn't be talking like that. Human rights. One, look where he's from. Look at his situation. Two, look what he's been through, right? He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care. He doesn't even like you. He doesn't care. In fact, he knows what pisses you off because his wife was American. So he knows what he's doing. The guy's a smart guy, and he's riling people up, right? He's just riling them up, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care what they say. In fact, when you attack him for this stuff, he basically uses that ammunition because that guy, Duterte is riding a very big wave of emotion, and he's part of a very big movement. I know not everybody supports Duterte, okay? Probably 70% disagree with most of his ideas, but there's something going on much, much deeper. And I think it's the standing up of the Philippines. I really do. I think it's the standing up. It's the Asian man standing up and saying, we're not going to take it anymore. And when you do that, when you stand up after years of oppression, right, often you overreact. You know, I've seen that a million times. Is you have a lot of resentment, a lot of things have happened. The Filipinos are standing up right now. Their economy is getting good for the first time. Duterte is taking out corruption like crazy. He's closed, he's an environmentalist, by the way. I don't know if you read that in the newspaper. He closed 7 nickel mining operations, which were destroying the countryside. And guess who owned them? Americans, right? So, I don't know if they were all owned, but I think they're largely owned by Americans. He talked about it. He talked about Americans ruining his country by mining. And of course, he didn't talk about China mining and Burma or anything, but either way, it's his country. We're talking about the Philippines. And so, you know, he closed down those very unhealthy, bad situations. He's trying to clean the country up, is what he's doing. He's trying to clean the drug situation up. He's trying to do whatever he can do. He's 71 years old. He doesn't care what you think. He's been through a lot, and he's trying to clean his country up. And he sees disaster for his country if he doesn't. And that's why there's so much support for him. Even if you disagree with so many of his things, you still support him. A lot of people still support him. And the reason why is because he's doing more important things. He's taking the country. He's got attention now, right? People are like, Philippines is an important topic right now. And that's because of Duterte. If there was some other joker in there, we wouldn't even be talking about it. We wouldn't know about Dajo. We wouldn't know about things that have happened. We wouldn't know any of this stuff. He brought all this stuff to our attention. And I say thank you, you know, because these things have to be dealt with at some period, right? They got to be dealt with. There's anger, you know. I remember, I'll tell you one story about Japan was, when I moved there, there was a guy named Shintaro Ishihara who ended up being, he's still alive, he ended up being the mayor of Japan, of Tokyo. But he wrote a book called The Japan That Can't Say No. And that book was considered a racist book by most people. And so most people that I talked to, Americans, didn't read it. It was popular in Japan at the time. I bought the hardcover. And I read it several times. And I wanted to see I knew that this was a strong emotion. I knew that this was not a joke. It wasn't about the details. It was about what's driving this. Like, what is behind this book that's making this guy so popular? It's not the specifics, because the specifics don't look good. So I read the book over and over, and if you look, it went back to one incident, and I think this one incident for Ishihara-san was his kind of moment when he felt he was put down one too many times. He was walking, I believe it was down in Iwakuni. He was walking down the street. There was 3 Marines walking towards him, and they all, like, in his mind, they all walk like this, like, chest out. And he was a local, so, you know, get out of my way kind of thing. They all walked down the middle of the street, and all the Japanese were walking to the side. Ishihara did not like that. He walked right up to them, he bumped his chest, and he walked right through them. And that was his moment when he said, I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to be one of these guys who just kisses butt. Right? I think we're talking about the same thing here. So respect these kind of things. I don't know what the details are going to be. I don't know what you're going to see coming out next. But there's something going on here. There's a revolution going on. And Duterte is leading that revolution. So, I hope that gave you some ideas. There's so much more to talk about him. I have so many ideas and thoughts in my mind about what is important to know. But that's the basics. Please comment below and subscribe to the channel. And I love your comments, so please comment, because I got tons of comments on my first Philippine video, and it was really, really great. And I learned a lot. And I talked to a lot of you before I made this video. So, you know, I thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and thank you for interacting and helping me so we can understand these important things in our lives, right? So next time you hear Duterte's crazy, or, you know, he's this, or he's like Hitler, you know, think twice. Think about who the man is and what he went through. And then you will understand what's happening in the world, right? You'll understand. When you understand, good things happen. It's easier to make friends. Your life is better. You just basically fit in better, and also you don't make a fool out of yourself saying stupid things, which is a lot of people are doing right now, saying a lot of stupid things that they're going to regret later. They're going to regret a lot of things that's being written about Duterte right now, right? because a lot of it's just plain old not true. It's based on things they don't understand. So I hope this helped you. Thanks so much.